Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We specialize in taking, the routine foundations of everyday life and really cracking them open to find the surprisingly deep insights hidden inside. And today, we are diving into a query so common, so ubiquitous, that I think most of us just answer completely without thinking, how are you?
It sounds so simple, right? Just a simple forward question. But, as our research sources all highlight, for most people, this question is just a moment of conversational default.
Right.
The standard overused response, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm okay. It's a completely wasted
Yeah, it
opportunity.
is. It's boring.
It is boring, and it fails to communicate any of the subtle nuances of your actual state or your personality or even the relationship you want to have with the person asking.
Absolutely. This query is, it's the conversational starting block for almost every interaction, from the quick check-in with the barista to, the formal opening of a huge business meeting. And if you're consistently using that same flat answer, you are, frankly, failing to signal fluency, confidence, and linguistic intelligence. Our deep dive has gone through all the linguistic literature, the style guides, the social anthropology texts, and we've pulled out 36 distinct, advanced, and interesting ways to respond.
And our mission today is very laser focused. We want to equip you with the linguistic precision you need to match your response precisely to your internal state and, just as importantly, the external context.
Right, the context.
And the core insight we really want you to absorb right away is this: how are you is often just a conversational ritual.
A placeholder.
Exactly. A greeting, a placeholder. It rarely requires a literal, deeply honest description of your condition.
Exactly. The goal isn't just to be different for the sake of it. It's to be precise. We want to help you navigate those waters, sound far more advanced and, more like a native speaker, and genuinely make a memorable impression through some unexpected wit or clarity or even emotional depth. We've organized these responses all across the spectrum, from extreme elation all the way to tactical evasion, and we're focusing heavily on the grammatical traps and the impact of tone. So let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Right, so before we get into, the fun stuff, the really creative answers, we have to spend some real time dismantling the single most persistent and honestly frustrating grammatical myth in conversational English.
Oh, yeah.
We are talking about the famous battle of good versus well.
This is truly the elephant in the grammar room, and it has caused so much confusion, particularly for people learning English for, generations.
Totally.
The classic argument, and it's often delivered by well-meaning parents or, some prescriptive grammar teachers, insists that responding with "I'm good" is incorrect.
Right, I was taught this so strictly.
And the reasoning is always that the verb to be, in this case I am, it demands an adverb to describe the action, and therefore you must use "I'm well."
And I can tell you, I internalized that rule so deeply for years I would correct myself, thinking that using good just made me sound uneducated.
We all did.
But here is the critical aha moment from our deep dive into modern usage and, descriptive grammar. That hard and fast rule is largely a relic when you apply it to the verb to be used this way.
That's absolutely correct. What often gets overlooked is the function of the verb to be in this specific sentence. When you say I am good, am is acting as a linking verb.
Okay.
It doesn't describe an action you are performing. It just links the subject, which is I, to a description of its state. The adjective good.
So when a native speaker says, I'm good, they're actually referring to their general disposition, their temperament, or their overall life status. They're describing the quality of their being.
Exactly. And if you need proof, just think about the opposite. No one ever corrects you if you say, I feel bad, or I am bad.
Right. Nobody says, you mean you feel bad?
Exactly. Bad is an adjective describing your state. Good functions identically here. So the claim that I'm good is universally incorrect is just a prescriptive myth that's been totally overcome by descriptive reality.
So it's okay. It's safe.
For a native speaker, it is generally acceptable and grammatically sound as long as you're talking about your general status, your temperament, or your psychological disposition.
That distinction is so key. But okay, what about I'm well? When does that become the better, more precise choice?
I'm well is still absolutely fine, and it's often slightly more formal, but it carries a more specific connotation.
Okay.
Historically and traditionally, well refers specifically to physical health or just an overall satisfactory physical condition. So if you respond with "I'm well," you are primarily signaling that you're in good health. It's often used in contrast to a recent illness or, some
Oh,
malaise.
that makes so much sense. So if someone knows I was battling a terrible cold last week and they asked, "How are you today?" my best response would be, "I'm well."
That's probably the most precise choice, yeah, because you're directly addressing the medical state.
So it signals recovery.
Exactly. It signals recovery and a return to satisfactory physical functioning. But if they just catch you unexpectedly in the elevator, "I'm good" is perfectly sufficient for a general status report.
It's all about nuance.
The most advanced speaker knows that both are viable, but "well" carries that more specific implication of health.
This nuanced understanding is what separates a functional speaker from, a truly fluent advanced communicator.
Yeah.
But we haven't even touched on the really critical distinction yet, which is the semantic trap that confuses everyone.
Oh boy.
The difference between doing well and doing good.
This is maybe the single most crucial takeaway in this entire section, and it really warrants significant elaboration. Our sources highlight this as the point where linguistic precision is just non-negotiable.
Okay, let's start with the one that's totally safe. If you say, "I'm doing well," that is perfectly appropriate.
Perfectly fine.
You're using the adverb well to describe the quality of your action, the act of doing or performing. It means you're succeeding, feeling great, generally performing effectively in life.
Correct. But now, change that one word. The moment you substitute the adverb "well" for the adjective "good" and say "I'm doing good," the entire meaning fundamentally shifts.
It shifts from describing your condition to describing your actions toward the world.
Precisely. If you tell someone "I am doing good," you are telling them that you are performing benevolent, virtuous, or charitable actions. You are acting ethically.
I remember the examples in the source material were things like you're running a charity marathon, or maybe you spent the afternoon volunteering at a soup kitchen.
Right.
You're reporting on your philanthropy, not your mood.
And that distinction has to be enforced because the words are just so close. I mean, if a colleague asks, "How are you doing on the new Q3 project?" and you reply, "I'm doing good," they might pause for a second, thinking you've suddenly taken up acts of civic duty instead of finishing your spreadsheets.
Right. They're like, "That's great, but what about the report?"
Exactly. If you want to convey successful performance, you must use the adverb "I'm doing well."
I do want to push back on that just a little bit, though. In a very, very casual, high slang context, hasn't "I'm doing good" sort of seeped into meaning "I'm doing well"? I feel like I hear it.
You do hear it. It has, especially in hyper casual or highly regionalized American English, but this is exactly the kind of linguistic shortcut that an advanced speaker should avoid in any professional or new social setting.
I see.
Relying on context to bail out a grammatical choice is not precision. Precision is saying, "I'm doing well," and knowing that 100% of native and non-native listeners will immediately understand you're referring to your state of performance or feeling.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The goal is to maximize clarity and minimize any chance of misinterpretation. So, to summarize that crucial takeaway for you, the listener, if you feel great and your life is running smoothly, say, "I'm doing well." If you have spent the day helping others, you may say, "I'm doing good." And mastering this is a huge sign of true linguistic confidence.
So now that we've sorted out the grammar and we've given you a strong, safe foundation with "I'm good," "I'm well," and "I'm doing well," we have to acknowledge the central problem.
Which is?
These phrases, while grammatically safe, are profoundly boring. They're absolute conversation killers.
I think the often equals dullness, doesn't it? If the goal is linguistic precision, how do we introduce some, texture and color into those functional but very tired base responses?
Well, the answer lies in introducing precise, well-chosen qualifiers.
Okay.
We can start with the most common and versatile modifier, pretty. When it's used in this context, pretty acts as an intensifier, meaning fairly, moderately, or to a considerable degree. It's an easy way to just turn the dial up a notch.
So instead of a flat "I'm good," you can offer "I'm pretty good."
Yeah.
You're signaling a level of satisfaction that is, higher than neutral, but you're avoiding claiming outright perfection or enthusiasm.
Exactly. It's warm, comfortable, and casual.
I use that one all the time.
We all do. You might also use "I'm pretty well," though that usage is a bit less common because, well, already implies a satisfactory state. The sources highlight that pretty good is probably the most ubiquitously common modifier for positive but not ecstatic feelings across North America.
And here's one of those subtle linguistic insights that really marks an advanced speaker. The acceptance of pretty fine.
Yeah.
While I'm pretty good is solid everywhere, saying I'm pretty fine might sound slightly less natural in, say, a formal British English setting compared to American English. It's a tiny detail, but catching those regional nuances shows real depth.
It really does. Now, moving to the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the qualifier. Really?
Okay.
This is not used for moderation at all. It is used purely for emphasis and intensity. It communicates a genuine surge of positive feelings.
I'm really good, or I'm really well. When you hear that, there's an instant, authentic emotional weight added to the conversation. They aren't just giving you the conversational minimum, they're enthusiastically reporting a genuinely excellent state.
Think about the difference in intent. If you say pretty good, you are just responding to the question. If you say really good, you are sort of celebrating your state with the person who asked.
That's a great way to put it. It's an invitation to a slightly more detailed follow-up.
Exactly.
Our third key qualifier is quite. Now, this one is fascinating because rather than adding enthusiasm, it typically adds a layer of formality and a sense of measured composure.
Indeed. If you say, I'm quite well, thank you, it sounds highly formal, measured, and proper. In British English, quite can also mean very, but in the context of an answer to, how are you? In North America, it often signals a reserved, controlled, and satisfactory condition.
You probably wouldn't use I'm quite good with your college friends, right? It would sound a bit stuffy, maybe even slightly out of place.
A little bit, yeah.
But if you're in a formal business setting or speaking to an elder or addressing an authority figure, I'm quite well, is highly appropriate. And it signals respect for the formalities of that exchange.
So just by adding one of these three modifiers, pretty, really, or quite, you've instantly created 9 new responses.
Wow.
And each one communicates a different gradient of emotional intensity and formality. You've moved the dial from just a flat declaration to a textured, precise communication of your state.
It's how you stop sounding like an audio textbook.
Exactly. You start sounding like an advanced native speaker.
It's precision through modification. Are you moderately satisfied, genuinely thrilled, or formally satisfactory? The qualifier does all the heavy lifting, allowing the fundamental safety of good or well to stay, but giving it a real flavor. So we've established how to tweak the basics. Now let's explore the responses for the days when you are genuinely thriving, or when you just want to inject a bit of wit and personality into the interaction.
Yeah, when things are truly excellent, the qualifiers just don't really cut it. You need a phrase that communicates peak performance. That brings us to, I've never been better.
This indicates a sense of true outstanding wellness, whether it's physically, mentally, or professionally. And it's often shortened, right, to a very punchy, confident declaration, never been better.
Never been better. It implies a personal best.
Yeah.
And that leads naturally to a phrase that specifically references progress or momentum. So far, so good.
I like this one. It's not just about feeling good internally. It's a progress report.
Yes, that's the key.
It's a great option if you're dealing with a complex task or a deadline or recovering from a recent challenge. It implies that challenges existed, but they haven't won yet, and you are on track. Right. If you were recently sick, so far so good, suggests the recovery is holding up.
Or if you're managing a difficult team, it means the project hasn't imploded yet.
Exactly. It's highly contextual and extremely useful in professional settings because it communicates status without requiring you to explain all the details.
Okay, let's turn to maybe the most tonally complex response in the positive category. Can't complain. I hear this phrase dozens of times a week, but the meaning is entirely dependent on the music of the delivery.
This is a perfect example of a phrase that relies 90% on tone and 10% on literal meaning. Can't complain exists on a social spectrum, and it's specifically related to humility.
Okay, so let's discuss the common use first, which is often kind of self-deprecating and positive. This is typically said with a lighter, slightly airy tone, maybe with a little shoulder shrug. Right. In that context, can't complain is a cultural signal. It means my life is, frankly, amazing, but I recognize that people generally dislike blatant bragging, so I will offer a humble, slightly self-deprecating acknowledgement of my good fortune.
It's a linguistic safeguard against sounding arrogant.
Absolutely. It's the polite Midwestern or, British way of saying, I'm crushing it, but please don't hate me for it.
It's an acknowledgement of goodness veiled in modesty.
But now contrast that with the alternative use.
Yeah.
If the phrase is delivered with a lower, flat, or indifferent tone, maybe with a sigh, it transforms entirely.
Oh, yeah.
The meaning becomes, could be worse, or even, I am barely surviving, but the struggle isn't bad enough to warrant an official complaint.
That shift in meaning is enormous.
Hmm.
If your boss asks you on a Monday morning how the weekend was, and you say, can't complain, with a light, optimistic tone, they assume you had a great time. But if they ask you after a major server outage, and you deliver the same phrase with a sigh and a lowered voice, they understand you're operating at minimum functional capacity.
The listener needs to treat this phrase as a dual key signal. You're not just listening to the words, you are analyzing the entire vocal delivery, the speed, and the inflection. It's a pretty advanced listening skill.
For sure. Okay, now let's move into the truly silly, flirty, and tongue-in-cheek options. These are great for deepening connections with friends, family, or building rapport with someone you've just met and want to impress.
These phrases are high reward, but they do carry a little social risk. They require the questioner to have a sense of humor or a pre-existing positive relationship. A fantastic, safe option for self-deprecation is better than I deserve.
Oh, that is a classic. It's witty, it assumes a shared humility, and it usually guarantees a small, positive reaction.
For true elation and humor, particularly for the animal lovers out there, there's the delightfully absurd, if I had a tail, I would wag it.
I love that one. That communicates total happiness and lightheartedness.
It's a huge declaration of joy.
I also love the options that introduce a playful, almost flirty element by shifting the focus just a little bit.
For instance, if someone asks how you are, you could reply, word on the street is, I'm pretty good.
Oh, it's charming.
It is, because it implies that your reputation for competence or happiness precedes you, so it places you outside the normal conversational frame. It says, I'm great and people are noticing.
Or the self-aware but playful option, I'm great but I'm totally biased.
Yes, that acknowledges the subjectivity of your feelings with a little wink.
These responses are crucial because they demonstrate advanced social fluency. They show that you recognize the formality of the question, but you're choosing to subvert it with personality.
Right. You are communicating that you are confident enough to be playful, and that moves the interaction instantly from transactional to personal. Just remember, save the tail wagging for people you know well.
We've had our moment of sunshine. Let's be realistic. Most of life, most days, falls into that great, vast middle ground. We are neither fantastic nor terrible. Our job here is to make sure that in this neutral territory, we absolutely avoid the flat, lifeless response of I'm okay.
That phrase is the linguistic equivalent of a shrug emoji. It communicates maximum ambivalence and minimum effort. We need alternatives when the feeling is neutral, adequate, average, or just adequate.
So where do we start? Let's start with an option that's both highly functional and uniquely conversational. I'm all right.
I'm all right is interesting because, as our sources note, it's one of the few responses that works perfectly as both a question and an answer, especially in rapid casual loops.
Oh, yeah. In many offices, you'll just hear two colleagues pass each other. All right, followed instantly by all right.
Exactly. It's a quick, minimalist check-in and check-out. It's basically asking, are you functional? And answering, yes, I am functional.
And for you, the listener, striving for truly native pronunciation, we need to stress that consonant drop. In quick, casual speech, the L sound is often completely eliminated. It sounds more like a right.
Yes, practicing that relaxed, natural articulation is a subtle marker of advanced fluency.
So, moving back to expressing genuine neutrality, or maybe mild dissatisfaction, we have the core alternatives. So-so, or could be better.
Could be better is a wonderful phrase because it signals that you're not dying, but you certainly wouldn't give the day an A+. It implies mild hardship without inviting a detailed medical or emotional report.
Right. And much like can't complain, the phrase not too bad is fundamentally tone dependent.
Totally.
If I say not too bad, with an enthusiastic lift, it means good. But if it's delivered flatly, maybe with a slight emphasis on bad, it implies I'm struggling slightly, but I am managing, and you don't need to worry.
The English language's reliance on the music of conversation is never clearer than in these neutral phrases. The same three words can mean either positive or mild negative, purely based on whether your voice goes up or down at the end.
It's amazing.
To balance the mild negative of could be better, you can also add some important nuance by extending the phrase into a more philosophical statement. Could be better, but I could also be worse.
I like that. That immediately frames your situation in a more balanced, self-aware light. It acknowledges hardship while consciously maintaining perspective.
It's an advanced way of saying, I recognize my current state isn't peak, but I'm grateful it's not rock bottom.
Now, what about when the state isn't just neutral, but genuinely repetitive or monotonous? When things are just dull and uninspired?
For that, we turn to the response of resignation. Same old, really.
That response communicates a total lack of change. It says, there is nothing new to report, the monotony continues, and I am neither excited nor depressed about it.
And then we have the phrases that indicate you are just barely functional, just surviving or hovering close to the bad end of the spectrum.
Of alive?
I'm alive or I'm surviving.
These are often delivered with a slight weary laugh or a sigh. They communicate functionality without enthusiasm. They are conversational shortcuts for, I'm getting through it, but please don't burden me with any more tasks.
Speaking of functionality, let's dive deeper into good enough. This is the ultimate declaration of adequacy, and it's a brilliant phrase because of its underlying cultural meaning.
It sounds simple, but good enough is so loaded. It means you meet the minimum requirements for existing or for performing a task, but you are utterly uninspired or you lack the energy to push for excellence.
The source materials included a wonderful anecdote about this. They mentioned a certain long-serving teacher who was known as Mr. Good Enough.
Oh, that's great.
Because while he wasn't a great educator, he was competent enough to remain in his post without causing any problems. That just encapsulates the meaning perfectly. Satisfactory, but definitely not exemplary.
That context gives the phrase real weight.
Yeah.
You're telling the questioner that you are currently operating as Mr. Good Enough.
Exactly.
Let's wrap up this middle ground with a couple of charming yet slightly edgy replies. The first is just pure, delicious, sarcastic flatness.
Go on.
I'm all right now, but there's still time for everything to go horribly wrong.
That manages expectations beautifully. It sets a baseline of temporary stability while embracing existential realism.
And the charming reply that instantly shifts the focus and injects warmth is, better now that I'm talking to you.
Ah, that's a good one. This is excellent for building rapport. It takes a neutral moment and instantly transforms it into a moment of connection and flattery. It's an easy social win.
We now move to the most sensitive part of the conversation. How to communicate genuine difficulty, emotional struggle, or the need for support without collapsing into overly dramatic or complex explanations. This segment requires a slow, careful pace, because these phrases are less about vocabulary and more about advanced social signaling.
When you feel genuinely bad, and you are willing to share that vulnerability, you need clear signals. Before delivering bad news or a heavy complaint, it is often helpful to verbally prepare the listener. A fantastic way to pre-frame the incoming negativity is using the phrase, I'm not gonna lie.
This preamble, which is often shortened to just, I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
serves as a verbal warning sign.
Yep.
It communicates, I'm about to drop the social mask of formality, and I expect you to listen. And once you've established that pre-frame, you're licensed to deliver the bad news directly. I'm not going to lie, I feel terrible.
It instantly establishes honesty and vulnerability. And if the struggle is mental or emotional or broadly existential, but you don't want to use clinical terms, you need soft phrases that gently signal distress. Key phrases here are, I'm not doing so well, or I'm struggling a bit.
These phrases imply a difficulty that runs deeper than just a simple bad day. They suggest a mental or emotional strain, perhaps relating to stress or anxiety or just deep fatigue.
And this is a critical point for the listener who is receiving these responses. These phrases are often a quiet way of reaching out for support or for recognition.
It's a bid for connection.
It is. When someone says, I'm struggling a bit, they are rarely looking for a list of solutions or a quick fix. They're looking for validation of their state and for empathy. The advanced social participant listens, slows down, and acknowledges the gravity of that statement.
Okay, now, let's look at difficulties stemming specifically from professional overload. The sources offer a wonderfully vivid idiom for this. I'm snowed under.
This idiom is such a powerful visual metaphor. To be snowed under is to be completely buried under an excessive amount of work.
Can't see the light.
You're unable to see the light, unable to dig yourself out, and functioning under immense pressure. It is highly effective because it concisely communicates extreme professional stress without requiring you to detail your entire to-do list.
It's a fast, efficient, and relatable way to communicate your bandwidth is at zero, which is so crucial in a fast-paced work environment.
For general tough times, when you want to contextualize the struggle over a larger period, we have broader temporal statements. It's been a tough day or a tough week or even a tough year.
Or just, I'm not having an easy time at the
Ash-
moment.
Right. These phrases clearly define the period of hardship, and they signal that the challenge is circumstantial, not necessarily a permanent emotional state. For example, it's been a tough week focuses the struggle on the past 7 days, limiting the scope of the potential conversation.
And we really have to reiterate the social importance of listening when people use these phrases. Our deep dive into the anthropology of conversation confirms that these are not just simple responses, they are social invitations.
You're being invited to show empathy, not to solve their problems. If someone says, I'm not having an easy time at the moment, it may be their quiet, professional way of asking for just a moment of grace or understanding.
Finally, what if the difficulty is purely physical? A minor illness, maybe not serious enough to warrant calling out sick, but bad enough to mention. We need an idiomatic option that avoids those overly clinical descriptions.
That option is the classic idiom. I'm a bit under the weather. This is the perfect, universally understood, polite way to express that you feel ill or unwell without having to go into detail about symptoms, which is highly appreciated in professional contexts.
It clearly communicates that you're not feeling well, likely temporarily, and it subtly sets the expectation that you might not be performing at 100%. It's fluent, polite, and signals exactly the right level of mild indisposition.
So moving to the opposite end of the sensitivity spectrum, sometimes you feel terrible, but you absolutely strategically do not want to talk about it.
Right.
Perhaps the person asking is a casual acquaintance or a nosy colleague, or you simply haven't processed your own feelings yet.
We need phrases for tactical evasion. These are ways to politely yet firmly set boundaries and shut down the detailed request, allowing you to move the conversation forward without sharing vulnerability.
Tactical evasion requires conversational confidence. The first option is direct and very effective, signaling immediate closure. You don't want to know.
That instantly stops the conversation from progressing into potentially painful details. It signals, trust me, the true answer is too complicated or heavy or inappropriate for this brief interaction.
It places the responsibility of ending the inquiry squarely back on the questioner.
I like that.
A slightly more intense, perhaps exasperated version for someone you know well, or for when the timing is just truly awful, is don't ask, honestly. Just don't ask me.
That leaves zero doubt that the topic is closed.
None.
And what if the question is annoying, specifically because the person asking already has the information? Say, a friend is asking how your job search is going after they already saw your rejection email.
Oof, yeah.
In that scenario, you can use tactical annoyance. Do I have to answer that?
This carries a playful, slightly aggressive yet exasperated tone. It implies, you know the answer is bad, so why are you making me articulate it and relive the pain?
Right.
But this is highly effective only with close friends or colleagues who share a certain level of familiarity. Using this with a manager would be a catastrophic breach of professional hierarchy.
Oh, absolutely not. That hierarchy consideration is key. Evasive maneuvers must always be context appropriate. Don't ask is fine for a peer, but with a senior manager, you might stick to the slightly more formal evasive move, like, I'll let you know when things settle down.
A different kind of evasion is needed for a specific scenario we all face. The ungodly early morning check-in. The moment you are asked, how are you, before your second cup of coffee.
The perfect reply. It's too early to tell. It's brilliant.
It is brilliant.
It implies that your mood, your energy level, and your overall prognosis for the day are still highly volatile and require further stabilization, which will only occur after sufficient caffeine intake.
It uses humor to dodge the need for a real answer.
Exactly.
Finally, let's move to the last category. The genuinely sarcastic, funny, or extreme responses. These are typically reserved for informal settings, close social circles, or those with a very dark sense of humor.
These responses thrive on shared cultural understanding, starting with a timeless, universal complaint that resonates with almost everyone in the professional sphere: overworked and underpaid.
That response is usually accompanied by a wry, knowing smile. It's an effective way of saying, I'm functional, but I'm definitely sacrificing my personal life and happiness for insufficient financial gain.
It's a complaint disguised as an answer.
Right. It allows you to vent without launching into a full tirade. Then there's the existential morbid humor, which requires an audience that appreciates the dark side of life.
And that is,
Slowly but surely dying, actually, aren't we all?
wow.
That is extreme sarcasm, embracing the shared existential dread of the human condition. It's funny because it acknowledges a fundamental truth in such an extreme, inappropriate context. It's a strong filter for finding out who shares your sense of humor.
For the minimalist approach to sarcasm, signaling utter flatness and lack of energy, we turn to the non-words, somewhere between blah and meh.
That uses linguistic shortcuts to perfectly convey profound indifference and non-feelings. It's modern, it's quick, and it signals that the speaker is currently operating in a state of deep, uninspired neutrality.
And finally, when all the complexity of articulating your mental state just feels overwhelming and you need comfort rather than conversation, you can use the plea.
And the plea is,
Just hug me and leave it at that.
ah.
This communicates a deep need for connection and comfort, bypassing the entire verbal explanation process. It is the ultimate boundary-setting, vulnerability-sharing, conversation-ending phrase. This has been a truly fascinating exploration. We started with the absolute conversational basics, the phrase, "How are you?" And through detailed dissection of all the source material, we found dozens of precise, nuanced ways to express everything from physical recovery to professional pressure and deep-seated sarcasm.
The key lesson for you is clear. A fluent and advanced response is not about choosing the longest or the most flowery phrase. It's about achieving linguistic precision, choosing the exact phrase that matches your internal state with the external context.
Right.
Whether it's high formality, genuine struggle, self-deprecating humor, or tactical evasion, the precision is what matters.
Mastering these alternatives helps you sound infinitely more confident, more engaged, and more advanced. You've moved from being a passive conversational participant who just defaults to fine, to an active one who strategically chooses their words to convey texture and intent.
And remember, the response is fundamentally driven by context and your desired relationship with the questioner. Are you using "I'm quite well" with your boss to signal measured professionalism?
Mhm.
Or are you using "I'm struggling a bit" with a trusted friend to signal a genuine need for connection? The words are tools. Context is the roadmap.
That brings us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. Our entire discussion focused on responding to the question, "How are you?" Given that we established this phrase often functions as a social formality and doesn't always demand an honest answer, think about the other side of the equation.
If you genuinely want someone to open up and be honest with you, what is the best way to ask the question? How might these nuanced responses we've discussed, the details about physical health, professional overload, and emotional struggle influence the way you structure your initial inquiry to elicit that level of authentic connection?
How does the language of response shape the language of inquiry?
Exactly.
Something to ponder as you navigate your next conversational starting block. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.